"Victor, please, come get me." The whisper was so faint, Victor almost thought the call had dropped. But he stood frozen. The boardroom overlooking downtown Dallas fell away. The attorneys, the investors, the energy executives, the 8-figure acquisition. None of it mattered anymore. Victor Blackstone slowly rose from his chair, and while the conversation around him continued for a heartbeat, it quickly died. Because everyone in the room noticed the same thing. Victor had gone completely still. And a still Victor was a dangerous thing. "Talk to me." The voice on the other end trembled, not crying but fighting not to. And there was a difference. "It's Hannah." As if he wouldn't know, Victor turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Texas sun burning across the skyline as his jaw tightened. "Where are you?" A shaky breath, then silence. For a moment, he thought the call had disconnected. Then she spoke. "I don't know what to do." Something cold settled inside his chest. Hannah never said things like that. She solved problems. She organized chaos. She found answers before anyone else even knew there was a question. Hearing fear in her voice felt wrong, like hearing a church bell ring underwater.
"Start from the beginning." The line crackled. "I think somebody set me up." Victor's eyes narrowed. Across the room, the executives exchanged nervous glances. Nobody could hear Hannah, but everyone could see Victor, and they knew something had changed. Most people never noticed Hannah. That was the irony. She worked for one of the most powerful men in Texas, yet somehow remained invisible. At 34, Hannah spent her days buried behind spreadsheets, contracts, permits, land surveys, tax records, and water right reports. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't loud. She wasn't the woman people remembered after a meeting. She was short, curvy, soft around the edges. The kind of woman people looked past, especially standing next to Victor. Victor attracted attention the second he entered a room, but Hannah absorbed it. It disappeared around her. And after years of being overlooked, she had learned how to use that. People revealed things around invisible women. They talked too much, shared too much, ignored too much. And Hannah remembered everything. Every number, every signature, every inconsistency. Victor had figured that out years ago, but everyone else still thought she was just another employee. That mistake had become very expensive for several people. 3 hours earlier, Hannah had left Blackstone Ranch carrying a simple assignment. At least, that is what she had thought. Pick up the finalized water transfer records, bring them back, review them, done. An easy afternoon. The drive had taken her nearly 2 hours. The records were being stored temporarily at a small processing facility owned by Red Mesa Energy, a company Victor had been negotiating with for months. Everything about the trip had seemed normal until she arrived. The first thing she noticed was the security gate. It was open, and it was never open. The second thing she noticed was the camera mounted above the entrance. Dead. No blinking light, no movement.
Nothing. A knot formed in her stomach. She parked anyway, grabbed her tablet, and got out. The wind rolled across the empty Texas plains. Dry, hot, wrong. The facility looked abandoned. No employees, no trucks, no activity. Yet 3 vehicles sat behind the building. Hannah stopped walking. Something wasn't right. Every instinct she had spent years developing started screaming for her to leave. But instead, she kept going. Because Victor needed those records. And because Hannah had never been very good at walking away from a mystery.
The side entrance wasn't locked. That bothered her too. Inside the building was quiet. Far too quiet. She walked down a narrow hallway lined with filing rooms as the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and her footsteps echoed. Then she heard voices. Male voices. Somewhere beyond the records office. Hannah froze. One voice belonged to Richard Lawson, Victor's chief attorney. The second voice belonged to someone she didn't recognize. She moved closer. Carefully. Slowly. The wall between the rooms thin enough.
Victor still doesn't know? The unfamiliar voice laughed. No. Lawson sounded relaxed, confident. He trusts Hannah completely. Hannah stopped breathing as her pulse hammered against her ribs. The men continued. Once she signs off on the transfer reports, the water rights move automatically. And Blackstone Ranch. The laugh came again. Finished. A cold wave washed through her body. Water rights. Not land. Not contracts. Water. The single most valuable asset Victor owned. Without it, half the ranch would become worthless.
The conversation continued, but Hannah barely heard the rest because one fact kept repeating inside her head. Richard Lawson was betraying Victor. She took a step backward, then another, until her boot caught a loose metal bracket on the floor. Clang. The sound exploded through the hallway. Instant silence. Inside the office, the voices stopped. Hannah's blood turned to ice as a chair scraped backward. Fast. Did you hear that? Footsteps moving toward the door. Hannah ran. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She ran down the hallway, past the records room, past a storage area, past a maintenance office. The door behind her burst open. Hannah! Lawson sounded terrified, not concerned. Terrified, because she knew. She knew everything. And suddenly she understood. The assignment had never been about records. It had been about her. She spotted a maintenance ladder, climbed it, opened a narrow hatch, and pulled herself into an empty grain silo storage chamber above the facility. Darkness swallowed her. Dust filled the air. Her hands shook violently. Below, voices echoed through the building, searching. Closer. Closer. Hannah pressed herself against the wall, trying not to breathe, trying not to panic. Then she remembered the emergency satellite phone. The one Victor had given her 2 years earlier. The one she had laughed about. The one he had insisted she keep. If everything goes wrong, he had told her, call me. Her fingers found the device. She turned it on and dialed the only number stored inside. Victor answered before the second ring. Talk to me. A tear rolled down Hannah's cheek. For the first time all afternoon, she felt safe enough to be afraid. Victor. Below her, a door slammed open and voices shouted. Someone was getting closer. Her voice broke. Please, come get me. And on the other end of the line, something inside Victor Blackstone snapped. Victor didn't wait for the elevator. He took the stairs, 3 flights down, one hand gripping the phone, the other already reaching for the keys in his pocket. Behind him, the boardroom had erupted into confusion, with attorneys asking questions and executives standing. But Victor heard none of it. All he heard was Hannah's voice, small, broken, terrified. Please come get me. By the time he reached the underground garage, the black Impala was already waiting under the fluorescent lights with the driver's door open. Victor didn't slow down. Red Mesa facility. The security man nodded once and stepped back. The Impala roared to life, a sound that filled the garage like thunder. And a second later, the convoy of 5 black SUVs pulled out behind him. Victor had built his life around control. Land, water, contracts, people, risk. Everything was measured. Everything was calculated. But as the Impala tore out of the garage and into the burning Texas afternoon, there was nothing calculated in him. There was only one thought. Hannah was hiding somewhere in that facility, and someone had made her afraid. The drive should have taken 27 minutes. Victor made it in 17. Dust exploded behind the convoy as it turned onto the private access road. The Red Mesa processing facility sat low against the flat horizon, all pale metal walls and dead silence. It was too quiet. Hannah had been right. Something was wrong before Victor even stepped out of the car. The front gate was open, the cameras were dark, and no employees were visible. Victor shut off the engine. For one long second, nobody moved. Then he opened the door. The Texas heat hit him first, dry, sharp, merciless. He stepped out in his white shirt and black leather jacket, the silver Zippo already in his hand. Open, close, open, close. Every man behind him waited. Victor looked at the building. Find her. They entered through the side door. Inside, the air smelled like dust, machine oil, and overheated wiring. A hallway stretched ahead, narrow and empty. Victor walked first, not fast, not rushed. That was what made the men behind him nervous. Victor never had to hurry, but something in his face had changed. The cold indifference had dropped away, and something older and much more dangerous had taken its place. A door opened at the end of the hall, and Richard Lawson stepped out, his suit jacket crooked and his tie loosened. For half a second he looked relieved, until he saw Victor. The relief died immediately. Victor, Lawson said, "Thank God you're here. There's been a misunderstanding." Victor stopped 10 feet away. "Where is Hannah?" Lawson blinked. "Hannah?" The Zippo snapped shut in Victor's hand. Lawson's eyes flicked down to it, then back up. "I don't know. She ran off. She must have panicked." "Where is she?" "I just told you." Victor moved. Not much, only one step, but Lawson stopped talking. The hallway went silent, except for the buzz of the lights above. Victor's voice stayed low. "Do not make me ask a third time." Lawson swallowed, and for the first time in 10 years, Victor saw the truth on his attorney's face. Fear. Not fear for Hannah, but fear of being caught. Victor looked past him, where a metal ladder rose toward an upper storage chamber. Dust shifted in the air near the hatch. Victor's chest tightened. Hannah. No answer. He walked past Lawson as if the man had already stopped mattering, because he had. The ladder groaned under Victor's weight, and halfway up he heard a tiny movement, a breath held too long. At the top, he pushed the hatch open. Darkness waited. Dust floated in the beam of light from below. For a moment he saw nothing. Then a shadow moved near the curved wall.
Hannah. The shape went still. "It's me." Another second passed. Then she stepped out of the darkness. Victor forgot how to breathe. She was covered in dust, from her cardigan to her shoes. Her mahogany hair fallen loose and tangled around her face. Her cheeks streaked with tears. Her hands were shaking so hard the tablet under her arm kept knocking softly against her hip. She looked smaller than he had ever seen her. Not weak, never weak, but exhausted, terrified, alone. Her eyes found his, and whatever had been holding her together finally broke. "Victor!" Her knees gave out, and he crossed the space before she hit the floor. His arms closed around her, and she grabbed the front of his white shirt with both hands, burying her face against his chest. For several seconds she couldn't speak. She just shook. Victor held her tighter, not carefully, not politely, but tightly, like his body had decided something his mind hadn't caught up with yet. "I've got you." His voice was rougher than he expected. Hannah shook her head against him. "I thought I ruined everything. The ranch, the water rights, the contracts. I should have seen it sooner." "Stop." She froze. Victor lifted one hand and brushed dust from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture surprised him, and it surprised her too. But he didn't move his hand away. "You didn't ruin anything." "But Lawson is done. They were going to take the aquifer. They didn't. Only because I called you." Victor stared at her, and it hit him. Not slowly, not gently, but all at once. She was standing there covered in dust, shaking so hard she could barely hold her tablet. And she was still thinking about the ranch. Not herself, not what could have happened to her.
but the empire. His empire.
For 6 years, Hannah had sat quietly at the edge of rooms full of men who barely remembered her name, and she had protected them all. She had protected him. Not because anyone thanked her, and not because anyone saw her, but because that was who she was. Victor looked down at her hands, still twisted in his shirt, and something inside him shifted, something permanent. "You saved it," he said. Hannah blinked. "What?" "You saved all of it." Her lips parted, and for once she had no answer. Below them, voices echoed. One of his men called up from the hall. "Sir, Lawson's trying to leave." Victor didn't look away from Hannah. Let him try. Hannah's fingers tightened. No, that single word pulled him back. She wiped her face, suddenly alert, and the fear didn't leave her face, but something sharper rose through it. Focus. He had seen that look before, in audit meetings and land negotiations, anytime numbers started moving in ways they shouldn't. She unlocked the tablet and turned the screen around. Emails, wire instructions, signed transfer drafts, internal memos, a voice recording, a complete timeline. Victor stared, then stared again. "How long have you had this?" "I copied everything before they found me." Victor looked at her, then at the files, then back at her. "You had this the whole time." "I started downloading when I heard Lawson talking." "And you didn't say anything." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I was hiding in a silo." For the first time since the call, Victor almost smiled back. Almost. He took the tablet from her hands and signaled his man. "Get this to Mason. Full legal lock. Freeze Red Mesa's escrow accounts. Notify the bank. Nobody moves $1 until I say so." As the man disappeared, Hannah's shoulder sagged again. This time, Victor didn't wait for her to fall. He slid one arm behind her back and the other beneath her knees. Hannah gasped as he lifted her. "Victor, no, I'm too heavy." "Do not say that to me." "I just meant..." "I know what you meant." The silence between them changed. Victor carried her down the ladder slowly, as if she were the only thing in the building worth saving. Lawson was waiting in the hallway, but when he saw Hannah in Victor's arms, something in him collapsed. "Victor, listen to me," Lawson said. "She's emotional. She's scared." Victor turned his head. "Say another word about her." Lawson froze. Victor's voice stayed quiet. "Go ahead." Nobody moved. Lawson lowered his eyes, and Victor walked past him, carrying Hannah. Not because she couldn't walk, but because in that moment, he wanted everyone in that hallway to understand exactly where she stood. Not behind him, not beneath him, but with him. The ride back to Blackstone Ranch was silent. Hannah sat in the passenger seat with a wool blanket wrapped around her shoulders that Victor had tucked around her himself.
The sun was dropping toward the horizon, turning the land copper and gold. But nothing felt normal. Hannah stared out the window. My apartment is in town. I should go there first. No. Victor, I have clothes there. Already handled. My laptop, my medication, my cat.
Victor glanced at her, and for the first time, his expression softened. The cat is already in the north guest suite. Your neighbor let them in. A sound escaped her. Small, broken, almost a laugh. Then she covered her mouth quickly, embarrassed. Victor looked back at the road. He did not understand the feeling that moved through him then, only that he wanted to hear that sound again. The gates of Blackstone Ranch opened, and the Impala stopped beneath the portico. Victor got out first and opened her door. When he offered his hand, she stared at it before taking it. His fingers closed around hers, warm, steady, certain.
Inside, the housekeeper was waiting, with a fire lit and clean clothes folded on a chair. Hannah stared at them, her throat tightening. You didn't have to do all this. Victor removed his leather jacket and looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as an employee, but as Hannah. That scared her more than the silo. Victor, people are gonna talk. Let them. The board, the lawyers, the ranch. Victor stepped closer. The ranch is still standing because of you.
He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back, and for once, he looked like he didn't know exactly what to say. Finally, he spoke. You're staying here tonight. Hannah's breath caught. Just tonight? His eyes held hers. The silence stretched until he said very quietly, We'll talk about tomorrow later. And Hannah, exhausted, shaken, and still wrapped in his blanket, did something she almost never allowed herself to do. She stopped arguing. The next morning, she woke before sunrise. The first thing she reached for wasn't coffee. It was her laptop. By the time the rest of the ranch was awake, she had already reviewed every file she copied from Red Mesa. Twice. Victor found her in the library, barefoot, hair loosely tied back, 3 empty coffee cups beside her as the laptop screen reflected in her glasses. She hadn't noticed him yet. Victor stood in the doorway and watched her. For 6 years, Hannah had been the quiet person in every room, the one nobody noticed, the one nobody remembered, the one everyone underestimated. But now, he wasn't sure how he had ever missed her. Hannah. She looked up, seeming surprised he was there, then turned the screen toward him. I found it. Victor crossed the room. What? Hannah pointed to a chain of internal emails. At first glance, they looked ordinary, routine, forgettable. Then she highlighted 3 timestamps. 3 different servers, 3 different locations, all sent at exactly the same second.
It was impossible. Nobody could have done that manually, which meant one thing. Lawson hadn't been running the operation. Lawson had been following orders. Victor's expression darkened. Who? Hannah took a slow breath. Ethan Cross.
The CEO of Red Mesa. The man who had spent the last year smiling across conference tables. The man who had shaken Victor's hand. The man who had been planning to steal Blackstone Ranch. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Victor stood. "I'll bury him." No. The answer came instantly. Victor stopped. Hannah closed the laptop slowly, carefully, as if she had just discovered something dangerous. If we move now, he disappears. Victor stared at her, and she stared right back. For once, she wasn't following his lead. He was following hers. "Ethan thinks he already won," she said with a small smile. "Let's keep it that way."
Victor slowly sat back down. For the first time in years, he felt completely comfortable handing control to someone else. "Tell me your plan." For the next hour, Hannah explained everything. The emails, the transfers, the hidden agreements, the investors, the accounts. Every piece fit together. When she finally finished, Victor leaned back in his chair, a slow grin appearing on his face. "That is absolutely ruthless." Hannah shrugged. "You hired me." "No." Victor looked at her carefully. "That isn't why you're here anymore." The room went quiet. Hannah suddenly found the edge of the table very interesting. Victor almost smiled. Almost. 2 days later, the Texas Energy Development Summit filled the ballroom of the Austin Grand Hotel. Investors, executives, politicians, reporters. Every important name in the industry was there, exactly as Hannah wanted. Ethan Cross stood backstage, looking confident, relaxed, victorious. He had no idea what was coming. Across the room, Hannah sat beside Victor with a tablet resting on her lap. Victor watched her more than he watched the stage. "You sure about this?" Hannah didn't look up. "Absolutely." The lights dimmed. The presentation began. And for 15 minutes, everything went perfectly for Ethan. Then, Hannah touched the screen once. That was all it took. Every display in the ballroom changed. The presentation vanished, and a new document appeared. Then another, and another. Emails, contracts, wire transfers, internal communications. Every piece of evidence Hannah had recovered was projected on massive screens for everyone to see. The room fell silent. Then chaos erupted. Investors shouted questions, lawyers grabbed their phones, and reporters rushed toward the stage. Ethan's face turned white as he spun toward the screens, then the audience, then Hannah. For one frozen moment their eyes met, and he understood. He hadn't lost to Victor Blackstone. He had lost to Hannah. The quiet analyst nobody had bothered to notice, the woman everyone overlooked. And now, there was nothing he could do. Within minutes,
Ethan's empire collapsed in real time. Hannah watched the entire thing unfold, calm, steady, and silent. Victor couldn't take his eyes off her, not because she had saved the ranch, not because she had destroyed Ethan, but because she never once asked for credit. An investor approached their table, a silver-haired billionaire Victor had known for years. Hell of a recovery, Victor. Victor shook his head. No. The man frowned, but Victor turned toward Hannah. Congratulate her. The investor looked surprised, but Victor continued, pointing toward Hannah. The investigation, the evidence, the timing, the entire operation. That was her.
Silence followed. Then another investor approached. Then another. For the first time in her life, people weren't looking past her. They were looking at her. Actually looking at her. Listening. Respecting her. Recognizing her. Hannah didn't know what to do with that feeling. But Victor did. And he enjoyed every second of it. That night, the lights of Blackstone Ranch glowed against the darkness. The crisis was over. The ranch was safe. The future was secure. Victor and Hannah stood alone on the porch overlooking the valley as a warm breeze rolled across the hills. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Hannah broke the silence.
You didn't have to do that. Victor looked at her. Yes, I did. No. Yes. His voice softened. For 6 years, I've watched people look right through you. I'm done watching it. The words settled between them. Simple, honest, dangerous. For a moment, neither moved. Then Victor held out his hand. Ready? A smile slowly appeared on Hannah's face. For what? Victor glanced toward the lights of the house, then back at her. Tomorrow. Hannah looked at his hand, then took it without hesitation. Together, they walked toward the lights of Blackstone Ranch, toward tomorrow, toward whatever came next. If you loved Victor and Hannah's journey, smash that like button and share this story with your fellow romance fans. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling romance audio drama.